welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. Today, we have a very special guest, and his name is Dean Graves. He's a renowned meditation teacher, mental health counselor, and spiritual guide with over 20 years of experience in the field. Through his expertise in mental health and deep spiritual understanding, he provides a holistic approach to healing and growth. So with that in mind, we're going to dive into what it's like to have, just the human condition, because who else to talk to about the human condition? Someone that studied it, meditated on it, and helps people through it. So, Dean Graves, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Keegan. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm delighted to be here.
Of course, it's an honor to have you on the show. Might I say, I love the last name, by the way, Graves. I'm very much a dead person kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I didn't have anything to do with the choosing it. I just inherited it, honestly.
Well, I mean, that's fair. And it's great that you at least have pride in a last name, right? Because the last name is a lineage, and a lineage is what humans are known for. So, in a sense, you can say that a lineage is just a line of people, right? And with that line of people, there's some people that go off on one branch and break the line, and some people that keep it going. And with that, we have substance abuse, addiction, mental illnesses, and other things that just come across and throw people off that line. So, what do you think it is about the human condition and substance abuse and all that goes into the human consciousness?
Well, let me qualify it first. We are consciousness, and everything that we experience is consciousness, which means everything that we can see, feel, hear, touch, imagine is consciousness.
Okay.
And so it's not a matter of becoming conscious or being unconscious. You are consciousness. You have no other alternative but to exist. There is no such thing as non-existence, which is difficult for people to grasp. But we are incarnate. And we are experiencing creation at a range of consciousness. Okay. And the range of consciousness that we all share is called it's the third range from the bottom. So we are elementary in our evolution. We also exist simultaneously in the metaphysical world. That is our enduring self. That is a consciousness pattern. We do not have a physical form as we perceive ourselves to have in this lifetime. We do reincarnate. The average human has incarnated over 3,000 times, some as many as 8,000.
Wow.
Some of those have been short, some of those have been long, but the purpose of the physical world, and it is all conceptual, the purpose of the physical world is to intensify our experience so that we may more empirically explore consciousness, explore ourselves. And that is everyone's purpose. There is no being in creation that has a different purpose. That purpose is to explore ourselves, and we do that by having experiences. We all have a separate mission. The mission is for lifetime. It is guided by what we like to do. So you don't have to search around a lot for what your mission in life is, because you simply do what you like. We are all motivated to get more of what we like.
Okay.
But as you do what you like, then you become proficient at that because you like to do it. And by doing that consistently and from a framework of enjoying that, then you attract to you the nature of the experiences that you need in order to fulfill your task of exploring yourself through the lens that you are currently experiencing as your incarnate body.
Wow.
So we have incarnated as males, we've incarnated as females, we've incarnated as every color of person, wealthy, poor, domineering, and victimized. We've experienced all of that. And the reason that we do is to have a lens in order to learn of ourselves in relation to the people, places, and things that we encounter.
Very interesting. I love that. And you got all of this through meditation, correct?
Well, during meditation, shall I say.
Okay.
Meditation is the process that is an intensification of our self exploration.
Hmm.
And so essentially what what you are doing in meditation is learning to invert the awareness
Mm-hmm.
that we all innately have from outside of ourselves to inside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And as we learn to use that awareness as a healing tool
Mm-hmm.
and an exploratory tool, then we explore ourselves, but more importantly, we also explore awareness in and of itself. And we become aware of awareness and learn to explore awareness apart from the distortions of perception that comprise our perception of self.
Man.
And so it becomes the healing tool, and it
Mm-hmm.
is by far the most effective and dramatic healing tool that we have available to us. And I tell my students that invariably, someone who comes to meditation comes to it because they're running away from the stick, and the stick hurts, and they want relief from the stick. And so they begin to meditate,
Mm-hmm.
and it's difficult. It's difficult for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're having to invert that awareness and learn to become aware and take control of your thoughts and so forth. But you reach a point where you get a bite of the apple and you can substitute. I had one guy says, I'm not wild about the apple, but I really like lasagna. Okay, so you got a bite of the lasagna. It doesn't matter. Just you've got a taste
Mm-hmm.
of something that's really good and feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And so your motivation transforms at that point from running away from the stick to chasing the apple. And
Mm.
so your healing greatly accelerates at that point because, as we were talking about earlier, we're all motivated to get more of what we like. And healing feels better than not healing.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah. So meditation is the tool that we have available to us to develop that awareness, to discover what needs to be healed,
Mm-hmm.
and by virtue of the discovery, we heal because we let it go. And I use the metaphor: if you're walking out of your house in the morning and you go out and you see your car's got a flat tire, well, you've discovered what the problem is, and you're not
Yeah.
going to walk away from the car and never use the car again. You're going to get the tire fixed. You're going to call somebody or you're going to do it yourself, but you're going to fix the tire. You
Yeah.
fix the problem. And the same is true when we discover some aspect of ourselves that is causing us, perpetuating our stress. When we
Hmm.
discover that, we're going to let it go.
Yeah.
You
Or
just
we
let it
should.
go. And it is a matter of just letting it go.
Hmm. Very interesting. You bring up a whole lot of really, 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 really good points, and I feel like we can dive into a lot of them already.
Good.
And
I'm ready. Got my swimsuit on. Let's go.
all right, I love all this because it sounds so in line with a lot of things that I've already believed and experienced myself. But the thing is, you've got a lot of experience on top of me, first of all. So that's great
I'm
to
just old.
I mean, if you want to put it that way. But the thing is, it's always great to have someone that is in line with your thinking without having known that other person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because you'd go further than what I've really thought about in some regards. And I love that awareness is awareness, being aware of awareness. So,
Mm-hmm.
like existential thinking, essentially, like, why am I thinking the way that I'm thinking? Or why am I existing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so awareness is going like, hey, I'm awareness. And then awareness is going, hey, awareness, I'm also awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going, well, let me explore this side of awareness while awareness is exploring itself.
Yes.
So that whole saying that we are just life experiencing itself is ultimately true. It
Mm-hmm.
boils down to that, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And So whenever we go back to the lineage thing, and you were talking about how we all have our purposes and stuff, and it's about exploring ourselves, do you think that some people just fall into substance abuse and ultimately addiction because they were trying to explore a part of themselves, or maybe they found that relief because that was the apple to them instead of the stick until it becomes the stick?
Well, I teach lots of groups,
Okay.
people that usually have dual diagnosis, but substance abuse is always part of their experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I begin every group by asking the question, why do people use a substance of any sort? Anything from smoking to alcohol to hallucinogenics to more addictive street drugs.
To
Why does anybody use a substance?
to essentially either change the way they feel or perceive new things,
To
right?
feel better.
Yeah.
To feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to ask the question, if you're pursuing healing, what doesn't feel good before you started using the substance?
Mm.
And therein is the beginning of your self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Because what doesn't feel good is, simply put, the experiences that you have had in your lifetime
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't learn the lessons that that experience brought you. And
Mm.
so you're carrying those lessons
Mm-hmm.
as emotional baggage, unresolved
Mm.
emotional baggage. And
Okay.
emotional baggage is how we store those lessons, how we store those experiences, and we store it as an emotion because our interpretation of all experiences, every experience with emotions. That's how we learn. It has
Mm.
nothing to do with intellect or academia. It is
Okay.
purely an emotional decision that either this experience feels good, I like it
Mm-hmm.
and I want more of it, or
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel good.
Mm.
Those that don't feel good are in and of themselves stress. And
Mm.
stress is a spectrum. It ranges from the very minor, you may say, I don't like this spaghetti sauce, which is pretty minor,
Yeah.
all the way up to very severe traumatic experiences.
Mm.
It's all stress. It's a spectrum, a range of experiences that we have. The
Okay.
interesting thing to understand is no experience comes to us with emotion on it.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so you're saying that we don't have an experience brought to us saying this is what you're going to feel, right?
Right.
It's saying this is a blank slate, fill in the gap. Ah.
Imagine that you and I are sitting in the backyard and we're
Mm-hmm.
having a nice chat sitting in lawn chairs, and
Mm-hmm.
my next door neighbor turns on the sprinkler inadvertently.
Yeah, bummer.
We'd both get wet, wouldn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Why would we both get wet?
Well,
Because the
depend.
sprinkler brought the
Yeah,
water.
yeah. I was
The
going to say.
sprinkler brought the water, and we would have no alternative but to both get wet.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but if
Uh-huh.
we had four people and we were each standing on separate corners of an intersection, and there
Mm-hmm.
was a huge car wreck right in the middle of the intersection,
Mm.
and a tragic car wreck,
Mm-hmm.
would all four of us feel exactly the same way about observing and participating in that experience?
Absolutely not.
Okay, but if the experience brought the emotion, we
Mm-hmm.
would have no alternative to feel but to feel exactly the same about that
Mm.
experience. So we interpret every experience according to how we are.
So you're saying that the external experiences and how we perceive them is really the mirror to what is going on inside of us at that moment.
Exactly. You can have an experience today and interpret it as, I hate this experience.
Mm-hmm.
You can have virtually the same experience in 6 months and have
Mm-hmm.
a 180-degree opinion of it.
Mm-hmm.
The experience essentially is the same. What is different is you.
Yeah. So that would explain a few different things. And I guess that would be kind of like how someone falls into substance abuse because it makes them feel good. And then they have to get out of it because all of a sudden it's bringing the problems with it. And
Well, it compounds your situation.
yeah,
It makes your capacity for awareness. What does any substance do? What does it do? Lessens your awareness.
yeah, it dulls your senses. It makes you almost not really exist sometimes,
Yeah,
or
but it's
definitely,
awareness that's being dulled.
yeah,
And
yeah, it's true.
awareness is your discovery tool and your healing tool.
Ew. So essentially, do you think that that is like the human subconscious coming, or awareness itself coming back out after being trapped for so long? Because in a sense, it's kind of like something has to wake up in someone to not want that kind of relief anymore.
Yeah,
So,
sure. There is an awakening. There is an awareness.
yeah.
And of the myriad of people that I've worked with over the years, many of which are family members, until they have that awareness and they make that decision that they're going to assume personal responsibility for their healing,
Mm-hmm.
and they may not know what the next step is, have no idea how I'm going to accomplish this, but
Mm-hmm.
they make that decision that um, alcohol is no longer an option for me, or whatever the substance is no longer an option. I no longer will do this. It's not part
Mm-hmm.
of my makeup. And until they make that decision, the healing is not going to occur.
Yeah.
And that requires a very significant awareness on their part that they have to assume responsibility
Mm-hmm.
for that decision.
Yeah. And I think you really put it into great words, because assuming responsibility for healing is definitely a way I haven't heard it put before.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, because it's not only saying I'm going to take responsibility of the stuff I've done in the past, but it's going to say I'm taking responsibility for what is to come in the future too. And that is profound right there.
Well, it's a transformation of yourself.
Yeah.
Part of it is healing the emotional baggage that you've collected,
Mm-hmm.
which is nothing more than the lessons that have been brought to you that you didn't learn at the time. That's
Okay.
all that it is.
Yeah.
And we are designed from the moment that we're born to begin to create an identity.
Yeah.
An identity begins from scratch, however we are as an infant,
Huh.
and we start processing thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and every thought in and of itself is a complete experience.
Ooh.
And we are obligated with every single thought
Mm-hmm.
to make a decision of whether this thought feels good and I like it, or it
Uh-huh.
doesn't feel good and I don't like it. We don't make a
Mm.
checklist of pros and cons. We just, yeah, I like it. It feels good. I want more of it.
Huh.
And we're all motivated to get more of what we like.
Mm-hmm.
And that begins as an infant. And we learn that if we behave in a certain way, then
Mm-hmm.
we get rewarded with more of what we like. If we
Mm-hmm.
don't behave in a certain way, and we may get much of what we don't like,
Huh.
that same process continues today through our entire lifetime.
Hmm.
And we constantly modify this identity, and this identity is who we think we are. If I dress a
Mm-hmm.
certain way, if I wear my hair a certain way, if I smoke a certain cigarette, or whatever it is, we do that in the anticipation of tricking the world to giving us more of what we like because they
Mm.
identify with that. And so we constantly modify this identity, but the trick is that the identity, regardless of what the identity that
Mm-hmm.
you've created is always false.
Always false.
Always false. There's no true identity.
So would that be the hard question of what it is to be human? Do we
Well,
have?
yes, it's discovering of what it is to be human. It certainly is. It is the necessary process. And if you understand that we learn by analogy, we learn
Mm-hmm.
by comparison and contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And we begin infancy, and infancy, as we've suggested with the reference to reincarnations,
Mm-hmm.
we begin at the level of progress that we've made through our previous incarnations. And that's where we start a new lifetime.
Okay.
And any parent that has had more than one child, the child raised in essentially the same environment, the same stimulus, yada, 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 but each child is totally different from every other child in that family that has the same condition. And the reason is that child is a different soul. And it has different historical experiences. It's beginning a new lifetime in the condition that it has progressed through its evolutionary enduring self. And so we create this identity in order to learn what we don't like.
Yeah.
And we have to know what we don't like, so we'll know what we do like when we encounter it. How quickly that we decide what it is that we like and what we're going to focus on is that awakening that we were referencing earlier. Heck, it can happen when you're a teenager. It can happen when you're 50 years old. It can happen when you're 70 years old. It's up to you when you're ready to make that decision to start exploring yourself and fulfilling your purpose in life.
Man, that is some really good stuff, because I'm sitting here wondering, like, how does someone find out what their purpose is? Because if we're coming from another lifetime, if we're coming from different families, different parts of the world, things like that, then how does someone decide to go, well, not how do they decide? After they've decided that they want to heal, that they want to bring their awareness inside, that they want to find their purpose, is it as simple as, oh, that feels good and I'm good at it, so I'm going to do that?
That's the mission.
The
The
mission.
purpose, no one has a separate purpose.
Okay.
All creation, regardless of its degree of evolutionary advancement, has exactly the same purpose, because the purpose of creation is just that for the one infinite creator. The purpose of creation is so that the one infinite creator might know itself by experiencing itself.
So it's almost like a paradox of sorts, right?
It appears to be a paradox. When you consider that all is one, it is not paradoxical.
No. And
It's
then one is all.
self-resolving.
Yep. And so in that sense, essentially, you and I have had either similar experiences, and, well, hang on. Do you think we've actually had similar experiences if we've had similar lines of thought without having this conversation beforehand?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
And so how did you come to find out that we've had so many thousands of reincarnations? Is that
Well,
just, is that,
part of what happens when you seriously get into meditation is you break down your perceptions and limitations on receiving and conducting communications with ourselves that are beyond the physical.
okay. And so quick question, because you also work with dual diagnosis, because I'm dual diagnosis and being in recovery and everything like that. So whenever you deal with mental illness or anything like that, and I use air quotations around mental illness because, do you think that that's actually awareness on another level?
It can be.
It can be?
Can be. Bipolar, an accurate bipolar diagnosis is someone that is of a higher consciousness, and what they're experiencing is a pendulum swing. Your high is matched by your low. And so it is because you begin with a higher consciousness, that your enduring self is a higher consciousness. You're going to have a higher high, which means you're going to have a lower low, until you learn to integrate those. And again, that's part of exploring yourself and becoming aware more of who you are and learning to integrate those polarities. And find you're still probably going to have a pendulum swing. We all do, but the pendulum swings becomes much more modified and within what's deemed to be an acceptable range. Schizophrenia is a real schizophrenia diagnosis is someone who has experienced a trauma that has perpetuated a perforation of what's called the veil. And the veil is what shields us from the metaphysical world around us, the
Mm-hmm.
cosmos around us,
Mm-hmm.
because it would be very confusing for us
Mm-hmm.
because of our low level of consciousness.
Mm.
But that trauma perforates the veil. And so
Okay.
the voices that most schizophrenics are experiencing are just voices on the other side of the veil. And some are positive and some are negative, but they don't understand that. They don't know how to cope with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they resist that, and the resistance is what breaks down the mental function and the subsequent body changes in the mind that
Mm.
schizophrenia. But yeah, mental
Okay.
illnesses, they have a reason. That psychology and psychiatry swear that it's a chemical imbalance. Well, yeah, it is a chemical imbalance, but that's not the cause, that's the
Mm.
result.
Oh, okay.
The
See, you.
body is a product of the mind. And so the mind tells the body how to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if there's distortion, then the body will remain in that condition of distortion until the mind corrects its instructions to the body. So as you heal, the body heals. As you heal the
Okay.
mental, the body will heal.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting, because you also unknowingly hit something that I was dealing with not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I had recently gotten a root canal, and of course I have to be put underneath laughing gas. And while I was under, I started wondering about identity and ego and who I am. And so I started down this weird rabbit hole. And by the end of the operation, I felt better because I came out feeling like I actually got to a little bit more of who I maybe am or am not.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had hit something with the bipolar on the pendulum about integration, because that's what I've been working on personally, is doing integration. And I've noticed that mood swings aren't really a swing per se. It's more of a shift. And if I notice a shift, I can pull it back to center a lot quicker now. But that's after I've learned some of the lessons that came with a shift that came. And it is very strange because you're hitting everything that I've literally been going through within the last while.
Cool. Cool. I'm
So,
glad. I
yeah,
told you we'd have a good chat.
yes, you did. And it's just one of those things that I don't know how this happened, because we've this has been scheduled for a while, and I didn't sit here and go, I'm going to work on meditation and awareness specifically for this conversation. It's just one of those things that fell into everything that it should.
Well, when we're ready for it, the information is provided.
Mhm.
We just have to be aware and allow ourselves to receive it. We're
Yeah.
magnetic. We
Mm.
attract the experiences that we need.
Okay.
So if we're perpetuating the experience of negative experiences, it's not the experiences, because we've already talked about experiences being neutral of emotion.
Mhm.
We're attracting the experiences, the thoughts that we need in order to become aware and heal ourselves.
So you're kind of hinting at I might pull in more trauma if that's what it takes to get me out of a
If
healing.
that's what it takes. But the trauma definition is yours.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, what? Ooh, because not everything is going to be traumatic to the same person,
Right.
or
Exactly.
to a different person.
Yeah.
So, man, this is interesting. So, if we're magnets, and some people will go, why do bad things always happen to me? Is it because they're asking the wrong questions, or they're focusing on the wrong experiences?
Well, it's not a matter of focusing on the wrong experiences. They're looking at the world as the source of their experience. They are
Mm,
the source of their experience. So if I'm
okay.
I'm attracting the same experience over and over and over, just with different people,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm the magnet. There's what
Ah,
it is inside of me. Do I need to change in order to stop attracting these experiences?
oh man.
Invariably,
Uh,
it's going to be some of the beliefs that you've incorporated into your identity.
ooh. And so is that why, or rather, do you think identity should shift and be flexible and fluid and not rigid and a statue?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Because
what you're alluding to is Most people develop this identity throughout their lives, and they get tired of the identity. Not their identity, they get tired of their identity being challenged. And
Ooh.
so it's at that point then they start trying to manipulate the world around them to conform to their identity.
Mm.
You remember the TV show All in the Family with Archie
Hmm.
Bunker?
Yeah.
I mean, he was an archetype for that character that had stopped changing his identity and perpetually tried to manipulate the world in order to conform to his view of himself and the world.
Huh.
Now,
Okay.
that's called reaching a point of stasis.
Okay.
And we misperceive what we all seek is stability, but we
Mm.
misperceive stasis for stability. And the difference between stasis and stability, stasis does not anticipate change. Stability requires change in order to maintain stability.
Ooh. Ooh. I like that. Okay. So stasis. So we're looking to achieve stasis.
Now we mistake a stasis for stability. What we're
Okay.
seeking is stability.
Oh, okay. Okay. I had it backwards.
Yeah.
So.
We seek stability. There's flexibility in stability that allows us to balance.
Mm.
Stasis does not anticipate that. It does not anticipate change. Runs away from change. It
Ah.
resists. And so, you can make the old Buddhist metaphor of the willow as opposed to the oak. The oak
Mm-hmm.
doesn't bend. The willow bends with the winds. And
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't break.
Yeah.
And it's the same ideology.
Okay.
When we go into stasis, then we're fragile because we're so rigid.
Mm. And that really does seem what a lot of people fall into, more or less. And I don't know if it's because of societal programming or if it's just the emotional baggage that people maybe carried over from their past
That,
life.
well, you don't carry emotional baggage over from past lives. What you carry over is your condition of being.
Ooh,
So
okay.
any emotional baggage that you collect is exclusive to one lifetime. But
Oh,
your
okay, okay.
condition of being may be a significant magnet to attract more experiences that will quickly enhance your emotional baggage that you're creating.
Okay. So it also sounds like we're trying to be the creator of the world of the identity we like.
Yep. But as we evolve, and the evolutionary process is the surrendering of this identity, because underneath that in every identity is our
Mhm.
authentic self.
Yeah.
Every time that we have had a particularly enjoyable experience, usually in interaction with the person, place, or things that allowed us that feeling of love,
Mhm.
every time that you felt love in your life, what has happened is you've not gotten anything from the person that you were with other than permission to surrender this identity temporarily, and you allowed yourself to feel your authentic self.
I think you just explored and hit the man. Because that right there would explain to so many people why people are either a husk, a shell, or can't connect with other people
Mm-hmm.
because they're not letting their authentic self be seen.
Emerge, right? You're
Yeah.
already what you seek. You
Uh-huh.
are what you seek. And
Okay.
one of the benefits of a controlled experience of, for example, LSD,
Mm.
is you surrender that identity and
Mm.
you're feeling your authentic self.
Okay. So, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. That's all.
Oh, I was just going to say there's something, a phrase that I've heard back in the past, and that was for during LSD parties or whatever, and it's ego death. And that would seem to be along the lines of what you were talking about, letting the authentic self out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Huh,
absolutely. Of course, when you
interesting.
come off of the drug, then you're right back where you were. If you don't take that, and the
Uh-huh.
purpose of having those types of experiences is not to substitute you doing the work and getting
Mm.
there without the substance. It's giving
Mm-hmm.
you a peek behind the curtain so you know
Ah,
what your objective is for doing the work
okay.
of healing.
Gotcha. And so that's why some people think that that those substances can be the key to healing whenever really they're just saying this is what's possible if you do the work.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Ooh.
A good life experience comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 60s, there were three Harvard professors
Okay.
that psychology department, and they began a series of experiments on themselves as well as others with
Mm-hmm.
LSD.
Mm.
And I forgot the third guy, but one guy was Timothy Leary, and
Okay.
Timothy Leary got into using the drugs and not doing the work. And he
Mm.
started the 60s movement of turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Mm.
And
Okay.
they were all dismissed from Harvard. But anyway, he went that path, and Richard Alpern, who became Ram Dass, took the foundation of those experiences, actually went to India for like 20 years and learned to meditate and learned to do the work and had some remarkable spiritual experiences and became Ram Dass and became a spiritual teacher of great renown. But
Wow.
his path was different from Timothy Leary because
Mm-hmm.
he recognized the transitory nature of continuing to use the drug and went to do the work necessary to effect the permanent healing in his beingness.
Okay. That is a really interesting comparison because it really does feel like just someone wanted the shortcut and someone saw the end goal and said it was worth it to do the actual work. And man, and so then you can sit there and see two totally different lives and two totally different paths that all started with a similar experience.
Right. Similar experience and a similar objective.
Mm. And so not the same purpose, similar
Well,
objective.
their
The
purpose was
purpose
the
is the
same,
same.
but
Is the same.
they just chose a different path.
Okay.
One became very forever productive, and the other one was transitory.
Mm.
He didn't go beyond that transitory experience.
Yeah. And so where do you think a lot of the average person, where do you think that they sit in anywhere? Actually, real quick, is there like seats of consciousness and awareness inside of a head or anything like that? Is there a scale factor of like anyone is like up to a level 8 consciousness level or awareness?
Yeah, there's a definitive scale for consciousness.
Okay.
Consciousness is segregated throughout creation, is segregated into ranges of consciousness.
Okay.
And every range of consciousness is divided, and a range of consciousness is called a density.
Okay.
And every density is divided essentially into an infinite number of dimensions. And
Mm.
so we progress incrementally through the dimensions, through the density, until we learn the curriculum of the density. And once we learn the curriculum of the density, then we progress to the next range of consciousness, the next density. And we begin
Okay.
again exploring the curriculum of that range of consciousness. The,
Ah.
the text, the objective of this range of consciousness that we are sharing
Mm-hmm.
is awareness.
Mm.
Awareness is an inherent characteristic of the Creator. The
Okay.
next range of consciousness is fourth density, and its text is love.
Mm.
And we will become love. We will become, in order to graduate from this range of consciousness, we will need to become awareness. Just
Hmm.
like in the next range of consciousness, we will become love. In the fifth density, we will become wisdom. We're exploring wisdom all through the fifth density. In the sixth density, which is the beginning of the creator being densities, we
Mm-hmm.
will become unity. The
Ah.
seventh density, we will become stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And then the eighth density is reunification. We're learned the lessons.
Okay. Ooh. And so then is that whenever reincarnation happens? Right at the last one?
No, no, we're reincarnating within third density. Actually, the physical
Okay.
world, about midway through the fourth density, we surrender the authenticity of the physical world entirely, and we no longer need to incarnate.
Okay.
And the rest of the evolution is not as an incarnate physical being.
Okay, so when I'm all with the metaphysical and stuff like that, so I'm totally right there with you. So
Okay?
you're saying that eventually our awareness won't even be in the physical, right?
Right. But understand that there is a hierarchy to progressing through the
Mm-hmm.
inherent characteristics of the Creator, but only
Mm-hmm.
hierarchical from the standpoint is you have to build the foundation before you build the walls. You have to build the walls before you build the roof, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awareness is foundational, and so we
Okay.
must first establish that awareness in order to be able to learn the lessons of this range of consciousness and prepare to do the work of the next range of consciousness. One of
Hmm.
the conditions that we begin this range of consciousness is being unconscious. And so
Oh.
we have to, by effort,
Mm-hmm.
become aware, become consciousness. And that is that point that we were alluding to earlier when
Mm-hmm.
you take responsibility for your healing
Mm-hmm.
and you take responsibility for your progression along the enlightenment path. And the enlightenment path is synonymous with consciousness evolution. There's no difference. Most people perceive enlightenment as a destination.
Yeah.
It's not.
Huh.
It is a path,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone is already enlightened to the degree that they have allowed themselves to become enlightened.
Okay. I like that. It also kind of sounds like enlightenment is also a fuel of sorts.
Well, awareness is the fuel.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would make sense. Awareness is more of the force pushing, while enlightenment is more of the vehicle.
right. And we're all motivated to get more of what we like. Invariably, what we like, what feels better than anything else,
Mm-hmm.
is our authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
because that is our authentic self. It's our core being. And all
Okay.
the things that we desire, truly desire, because it feels so good, we
Mm-hmm.
already have.
Ooh.
But we don't recognize it because we defend and protect this identity that we've created, which is our perception of self.
So it sounds like we just dig ourselves this weird, silly little hole sometimes, doesn't it?
Well, that's exactly what we do, but it's purposeful because we have to know what we don't like to know what we do like when we encounter it. So it's
Ooh.
only when we experience this identity and its foibles over and over and
Mm.
over until we realize this isn't working for me. I need something, there's something else that I need. And
Mm.
that's when you give up the authenticity of this identity and you begin to honestly explore intimacy with yourself.
Mm. And I think that that right there would probably mark a good starting point for a lot of people,
Hmm.
or even a good deep point for people, because I know for myself, I have to get intimate with myself.
Right. You have
And
to get honest with yourself.
yeah, and throughout my recovery journey, I've noticed that I can get honest with myself at different levels. And it takes like every time I'm like, all right, I am 100% honest. Okay, never mind, I lied a little. And then it's like, but I didn't realize that there were some things that I just either my perception was wrong, my experience made me feel a little bit weird about it, and then I had a second
What
experience
gave you the capacity to do that?
to do what?
To have those advancing degrees of honesty with yourself.
Being intimate, asking questions and answering
Honest
questions.
awareness. You discovered the problem, and when you discovered, wait a minute, I'm not really being honest with that's not really honest with myself.
Mm-hmm.
You've discovered the problem and you let it go, which allowed you to progress along that path of greater intimacy with yourself, which is nothing more than greater honesty with yourself.
Mm. Okay, yeah. And so whenever, let's see, how does someone actually, hang on, let's scrap that. Whenever we're sitting there and we're getting authentic and we have an identity, we have to come across the things that we don't like to find the things that we do like. So we suddenly have this weird conundrum where I have to come across these things that I don't like to know the things that I do like,
Mm-hmm.
to find the things that I'm good at and things I'm also not good at.
Mm-hmm.
So someone could probably be good at something and it doesn't feel right too, right?
Can, but probably not. I mean, if there's something that you're good at it, you're good at it because you've been doing it a lot.
Mm, yeah, true.
And so you do it a lot because you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you follow, I know, having been in recovery, you're familiar with the 12-step program.
Mm-hmm.
The 12 steps are an excellent guide for healing and
Mm.
escalating your enlightenment.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it's
for sure.
exactly what the process does. The first, you can divide the 12 steps into groups of three. The first three groups are function as a group. The next
Mm-hmm.
three function as a group. The first three is discovery and first awareness. The next three is healing. It's when you do that introspection and you're
Yeah.
painfully honest with yourself. And
Yeah.
I tell you a funny story. I had a woman in a group that I was teaching one time, and she had been in recovery several times and relapsed and so forth. And she said, I found out something that worked really, really well. When I get to that step where I have to confess all of my stuff to somebody else, I buy a bus ticket and I get on a bus to a nearby city and I sit next to somebody that I've never met before and I'm never going to see again, and I unload all my stuff to meet my step requirements, and then I ride back to my home city. And I'm thinking, yeah, but that person you're telling us to is probably traumatized for life after that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah, but the 12 steps are great, and the interesting thing is when you get to the 10, 11, and 12,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually becoming a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's when you really learn what you've been working on for the first 9 steps.
Yeah.
If you want to learn something, teach it.
You're 100% right.
Yeah. And so it's an excellent system, whether you're in recovery or not. If you're just a
Mm-hmm.
human that, is ready for your advancement along the Enlightenment path,
Mm-hmm.
the 12 steps is an excellent path to
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah. And I love that you say that because it's something that me and my co-host Simba have harped on before is that everyone should do the 12 steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It would be the best thing that they could do for their personal healing.
And I like if I think like 5% of the population did it, like honestly, and like not the ones that need it,
Hmm.
but just the ones that say, "Hey, I want to better myself even 1%." If 5% of the population did that, I think
It
the
would
world would
be
be
transformative. Yeah.
crazy. And that's the thing too is that I've not worked the steps just once. I've worked the steps 2 times now.
What's the
And
process?
yeah, you're supposed to it's kind of like reading some of those books that you're supposed to read as a child or teenager then as an adult and so on.
As you change, as you heal, then each step has a different meaning, has
Yes.
deeper meaning.
Yep.
But what's changing, the steps are the same. What's
Yeah.
changing is you, is your healing.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's my perception of things change, and like we were talking about earlier, how my honesty level changes. That changes how the step 4 and 5 look too, and that in turn changes steps 6, 7, 8, and 9, and so on, because everything is interconnected at that point.
Because you're incrementally healing. And your
Mm-hmm.
perceptions change. Your perception of self change. Your perception of relationships with others changes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything changes each time you go through the steps.
Yeah. And if anyone's identity is constantly in flux, then there's always some healing to do, right?
There's going to be constant healing while we remain in this range of consciousness. This range of consciousness is not designed for us to totally heal. That's what the next range of consciousness does. So once we learn the lessons of this range of consciousness, then we are preparing ourselves to significantly heal. And it's not until near the end of the next range of consciousness that this identity will totally go away.
Ooh, okay. And so by this identity, do you mean
Your perception, your erroneous perception of self.
okay? Huh. So interesting. So essentially, self is self until self is no longer self, right?
Well, your perception of self perpetually changes. That's the whole process of evolution. With each advancement that you make, what changes is your perception of self. Ultimately,
Mm.
what you're doing is you're surrendering your perception of separation from others and eventually the Creator.
Oh,
And so
okay.
each step of progression along through the densities expands your perception of self to incorporate more and more of creation.
Ew. So whenever we're really saying, like, I could say I'm not the same person I was 3 months ago. I'm
Mhm.
not the same person I was whenever I started recovery. Those are legitimate claims.
Those are absolutely positively legitimate claims. You are not the same person that you were before you processed the last thought.
Yeah. So
It
I'm
is
not the same person I
it's not possible to duplicate an experience
mm,
because we change after every thought. Minutely, teeny tiny bit, but we cannot duplicate exactly the same experience because we change after the processing of every thought.
I'd have to 110% agree on that because I can tell you right now I'm not the same person I was coming into this conversation.
I'm
Because
sorry.
now, oh, no need to be sorry. You just did exactly what you had talked about. You just helped expand my consciousness to help expand room to let more of awareness and everything else in. And
And hopefully allow more of the authentic you to emerge.
yeah, for sure. And that's the thing too, is that anyone listening to this is going to be able to sit there and go, hey, the dots. I have those dots.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also aware. So I can do those things too. And whenever, man, there's a lot to unpack with consciousness itself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think anyone's goal is to be unconscious?
No,
No.
no. We begin in unconsciousness, and it's very uncomfortable. It's very unpleasant.
And that's why we
That's where our
begin.
stress and suffering is magnified.
Interesting. So you're saying a state of unconsciousness is not a state of rest?
No, not at all.
Huh.
Not at all. It's a place of turmoil
So, hmm. Why do you think that some people want unconsciousness, though?
because they're worn out, but
Yeah.
they haven't reached that point of surrender.
And so ultimately, it goes back to surrender to authentic self.
Yep, that's all this whole process is. Because you are what you seek. And it's a matter of surrendering all of these false perceptions of self that we've obscured the authentic self's emergence. If you think of your identity as or your authentic self as the gold, and you've buried the gold in the ground and you've covered it
Mm-hmm.
with a bunch of trash.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get to the gold, you have to shovel off all the trash and dig the gold out of the dirt. But
Mm-hmm.
you put it there. You buried it
Mm-hmm.
so that you would have the experience of self exploration by learning what you don't like. And the trash obviously is not pleasant stuff to get rid of.
Oh boy. It really just goes, it is almost a paradox. Almost. But it's not.
It's not a paradox. It is a paradox until you discover that authentic self and you feel that.
Mm-hmm.
You feel that. It's not an intellectual awareness.
I was about to say, how does someone know they found their authentic self?
You feel it. Feels good. Feels really good.
All right.
Someone that we identify as ethical,
Mm-hmm.
moral, all those catchwords that we use to
Mm-hmm.
identify someone that we want to be with, to be around. That is their authentic, the behavioral characteristics of the authentic self.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
not something that they're taught. It's not something that they're trained. It is their behavioral aspects that emerge as they have more completely surrendered to their authentic self. And that only increases as we evolve.
Okay. And so the only way through it is forward, right?
Yep. Yep. Through it. Gotta feel it to heal it.
Gotta feel it to heal it, gotta reveal it to heal it, gotta do everything to heal it.
Yeah. Yeah. But the healing is literally is just letting it go.
So, okay, can we tie up with how does someone let something go if they don't know how to let go?
Okay. Well, Well, very simply, if you recognize, and these are all beliefs, that's all they are. These are nothing
Okay.
more than beliefs, is becoming aware of the belief and becoming aware that this belief is perpetuating your stress. It's perpetuating your attraction of experiences that continue to trigger you.
Okay.
Okay, so the process, very simply, is this belief. If I hold on to the belief that I'm going to continue to feel the guilt or the shame or whatever the uncomfortable condition is,
Mm-hmm.
but what if I didn't have that belief?
Mm.
And you begin by
Okay.
asking first of all, identify the belief.
Huh.
Simply write it down. What
Mm-hmm.
is the belief? And then pose the question, three questions. First question, how do I feel when I believe this, when I think this thought?
Okay.
Second question, is there any reason to keep this thought, this belief, that doesn't cause me stress?
Hmm.
The
Okay.
third question is, who would I be if I didn't have this belief, this thought?
Mm. Ooh. Ooh. I think that is going to be the one that scares people, right?
I don't think so, because invariably, or almost invariably, people say, well, I'd be a lot happier if I didn't have that belief. I would
Mm.
feel better if I didn't have that perpetual thought.
Uh-huh.
And then you flip it around.
Mm-hmm.
What is the opposite? What is the antonym to that thought?
Huh.
And that
And
really
then
brings it home.
yeah, and then that's how you find the relief,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Huh.
exactly. By writing the belief down,
Mm-hmm.
asking those three questions.
Okay.
How do I feel when I think this thought, this belief? Is
Mm-hmm.
there any reason to keep this belief that does not cause me stress? And who would I be if I didn't have this belief? And
Mm.
then what's the antithesis of that belief?
Okay.
Almost in 99 times out of 100, you're going to be providing yourself with your own answer.
Mm.
The
It
reason why
does.
you need to let it go.
Okay. So I think we just figured out, well, you just laid out the groundwork for a lot of listeners out there to sit there and go, I've got some healing to do. I've got some questions. I've got homework. Yay.
Good,
So,
good. And it's something you can do. You don't have to, and nobody else
mm,
has to know that you're asking yourself these questions
mm-hmm.
anytime you feel stress.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you know when you're feeling stressed, and you don't have to announce it to everybody. You don't have to put on a big drama show. Say, okay,
Uh,
I'm feeling stressed. Okay, why am I feeling stressed? What's the belief that I'm holding that is perpetuating this stress? Ask
mm-hmm.
yourself those three questions and then turn it around. You can
Okay.
do it in your mind. You don't have
Yeah.
to be a drama queen about it.
Some people do like the drama. So,
Part of that identity, because
yeah.
it has at some point in the past provided them what they perceive to be more of what they like. Either
Mm-hmm.
that or it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah. Ooh, and defense mechanisms are hard to break because it kept someone safe, right?
Learn behavior based upon a belief. If I
Based
act this way, then in the past, somehow it has gotten me more of what I perceive that I like, even if it's nothing more than a stress reduction.
mm-hmm. So, in that sense, because experiences don't carry emotions,
Hmm.
and emotions essentially define our beliefs, do you think that the experiences can help reshape the beliefs?
Well, that's the design, that you become
Uh,
aware of what the belief is and you realize I keep believing the same thing and I keep banging my head with the same two before. Stress is hitting yourself in the head with a two before one time. Suffering is
mhm.
banging yourself over and over and over with the same two before.
That's a really good way to put it.
So learn the lessons that you were attracting to you that are message to you of what you need to heal.
Mm. And then once you actually are able to accept it, you can let go of everything else.
When you become
And
aware of it,
yeah,
you don't have to
and
accept it. Acceptance is surrender to the stress and the suffering. You don't want to surrender to it. You just want to become aware of it, let it go.
mm, true. So whenever someone lets it go,
Then it's
they,
gone. You no longer
yep,
attract those experiences because you've learned the lesson.
yep. I was about to say you dropped that magnet.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. Well, we have talked about, let's see, identity, consciousness, awareness, a little bit about, well, a lot of stuff, really.
We did. Yeah.
I feel like those were the real key points. Do you feel like there's anything, real quick, hang on. You have a website, right?
I do. Yeah.
And
It's the initial D, Dean, Dean, Graves, all one word, .info.
okay.
And I have 4 books that I've written.
Ooh.
The most recent one is The Enigma of Consciousness, a spiritual exploration of humanity's relationship to creation. And if you want to dig deeply into it, then that's the book that you want to read.
Okay.
If you are starting the healing and you want to understand more about the identity and how the identity affects your behavior and your interpretations of life, then the identity model, understanding healing, stress, and suffering,
Okay.
is a very concise book. I wrote it for the mental health profession, but it requires no background. If you can read, you'll be fine with it. And I
Okay.
have some exercises in the past that are dramatically effective that you can self-apply. 2 of the 3. One of them you need a companion to work with you on, but I have a script that you can follow. You can dramatically heal traumas and this emotional baggage that we've been alluding to with those methodologies. I use them in my practice every day.
That's awesome. And we can find those books on your website, correct?
The links are all on the website. It would be the easiest place. Just go to the website and just follow the link to the book.
Right. So I have to ask, and this is absolutely no pressure, but do you think we could see you on the show in the future? Because we are running out of time.
I'm always available to talk about this stuff.
Sweet.
If it's helpful to your audience, then I will spend as much time as they need to understand it in more detail.
Awesome. Well, I know that this episode is already going to be a killer one on the radio, so I can't wait until everyone gets a piece of it. So I'm just excited to get this one edited and everything like that, because I'm not sure, like, this is one of those conversations where it's like, could we just make it like 2 or 3 hours? But I don't.
Yeah.
But it's one. Uh, Unfortunately, we didn't schedule for that. So that's the
Okay.
only reason why we've got to cut this a little short.
I understand.
But is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with this evening, or whatever time of day they may be listening to it?
Yeah, well, whenever you listen to it, I'll tell you that if you want to experience greater change, you're the only one that can facilitate that. There's not a doctor or a therapist in the world that knows your experiences and knows what you need in order to heal. You have to accept responsibility for that healing. And if you want to make a change, then be the change that you want to see in the world, which is a Mahatma Gandhi quote. It's one of my favorites.
And I love it. I was about to say, it sounds really familiar because
Yeah.
I've heard it before.
Yeah. It's not original.
Well, from the sounds of it, it's almost like nothing is really quite original.
It's not. It's not. Nothing I'm telling you is unique. It's been given to mankind numerous times over the ages. And for some reason, we either don't understand it or forget it.
Yeah. Well, we're here to relearn it, and I'm going to be relearning it time and time again, and I hope that you're right there with us.
I will do whatever I can to help.
All right. Well, Dean, it has been an absolute pleasure and an honor having you on Retrieving Sanity for the first time, and I can't wait until we have you back on the show, because holy cow, this was fun, and I've got a lot more questions already brewing, so...
Okay. Make your list. We'll go through them all.
All righty. Sounds good. Everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. I hope you have a great rest of your day, great weekend, and also check out Dean's website, ddeangraves.info.
.org.
.org.
Yeah.
There we go. But I'll fix that in editing.
Okay. All right.
Everyone out there, once again, thank you for listening. Check out Dean Graves' website and just try to be aware of your awareness a little bit. So with that, we're going to hit stop, and y'all have a great night.
Thank you, Keegan.